Hello, ngHouston. We're going to have, okay, I'm excited. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We have the Angular CLI crew. We have Mike, Brocco, and Hans Larsen. And we also have a super fun panel that kind of came together at the last minute. Oops, sorry. Let me mute my chat over there. So, Aaron, you want to go first? Say hello.
My name is Aaron. Hello.
Okay. Corey, you want to go next? You want to say hi?
Hey, Corey Ryland. How's everyone doing?
We're good. We're good. Glad awesome. I know we're not going to have too many people left in the chat if we pull them all in. So, Josh, you want to say hello?
Hey, guys. I'm Josh from Houston, Texas.
All right. And you guys know Shorty.
Hey, what's going on? How's it going? I'm Corey. I'm jealous of all your Legos there in the background.
Thanks.
What's happening with the Legos?
That is pretty cool with the Star Wars.
Cool.
Or you got to talk for a minute so we can see your toys.
So, yeah, I've got more Legos than I probably should. It's an expensive habit.
That's awesome.
Pretty legit.
Okay. So we got Shorty. How about Keith? Keith, you want to say hi?
Hey, guys. How's everyone doing?
We're good. We're good.
Awesome.
Okay, and that brings us to Mike and Hans. And you guys... Yeah, so actually, Mike, can you introduce yourself first, and then Hans, and then you guys just take it away and show us some CLI coolness.
Okay. I will clarify one thing. My last name is not Brocco. My last name is Brocchi.
Yeah, sorry, I got that from Twitter. I blame you.
Good. It's my own fault. I'm poorly branded.
Sorry.
I'll talk to my marketing team, which is me. So my name is Mike Brocchi. I work on the Angular CLI team, and I've been doing that full-time since March, working through Wrangle. And I work with Hans, so I'll let Hans introduce himself.
Hans, you're muted.
Yes, my name is Hans, and apparently I cannot find the mute button. So I work on the Angular team as the lead for the CLI, and try to survive every day working with Brocchi.
Okay, which one of you wants to share your screen so I can give you the presentation?
I can share my screen, or Mike, do you want to talk and I share the screen, or do you want me to talk and you share the screen?
It doesn't matter. Before we start sharing screens, do we want to talk about a little bit what the CLI is and who here is actually using it? Do you want to give the sales pitch, Hans, of what the CLI is? Or are you gonna?
Oh my God!
Or do you want me to do that? I don't care.
Well, I feel like you're a better salesman than I am, but I can try. So the CLI is a tool to scaffold, create, manage, build your projects, your Angular projects, which are easy to create components, to run your tests, to create modules, et cetera, and serve your app locally, and build something that's ready for production, for putting on your production server. How was that?
Andrew says in the chat, you don't need to sell. Andrew says, you don't need to sell it. Shut up and take my money.
It's great. It's great. I remember somebody who's I think is on this hangout telling me that she saved work by using the CLI. So I think that's the best sales pitch I could ever do, is basically just quote you out. Bonnie, that was really great.
I think I said that.
Yeah, ngConf. And it really comes down to that. It's basically like we put more than 2 years of engineering right now to make you save a few weeks of your project and look good to your bosses. And with that, I want to maybe share my screen.
Yeah.
Not better you than me.
Yeah. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yeah. Font size is good.
Oh, is that awesome? So I just finished scaffolding a project using ngNew my project. And right now I can basically just serve the project. which, well, actually, I need to share my whole screen. Sorry, I'm going to do that.
And while you're doing that, Hans, because I know we just had releases today. So releases of 1.2.7 and a release candidate for 1.3.0. Which version are you using? Or are you using the master?
So I'm using the latest 1.3.0. I'm on master, actually. So 1.3.0 RC5. And yeah, I know. You can see that 1.3.0 has a lot of new stuff. Like, for example, now we show up the date of the build before.
Hey, can I ask a question on that really quick?
Yes.
What is anybody out there using that RC release and stuff? Because you guys move so fast with different releases that like I have a hard time just keeping up with the regular release, updating my project.
So I'm gonna quote. I'm gonna say something that happened today. We made a release RC4, which was bogus. Actually, it didn't work. We made a mistake during the release, and I got basically 10 people like pinging me within an hour of releasing, and we fixed it within an hour. So yeah, I know at least 10 people that use it, that use the RC, that use like the next tag, that stay on beta, that stay up to date. We really tried to make it stable enough, but some features are not well tested. So
Hey, Hans.
yes.
Andrew in the chat over on YouTube says that they're using the Angular CLI at NASA. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I said, how did you know that? And he said, I work there and I'm using it. And I was like, ah, that's so cool. So apparently they're using the CLI at NASA now. Thank you, Andrew. That's pretty sweet.
It's extraterrestrial, man. You've gone wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'm impressed. Yes. This is cool.
That's pretty cool.
This is really cool. I did not know that. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought you'd get a kick out of that.
No, I did. I just did. You can't see me, but I'm having a blast right now. So
it's always good to hear the
we're
positives, because most of the time you hear the negatives because you're on GitHub and you're looking at issues and people are filing bugs and telling you things are broken and everything else. And not many people create issues on GitHub to say, hey, good job, thanks, we really appreciate what you've done there. It's always, no, hey, you broke my application again. So
Yeah.
doing stuff like this, it's nice to hear those things.
Yeah, that's why you got to come to ngHouston because we're really nice people.
Maybe I'm gonna do like some vacation at Houston at some point and just visit over.
Yeah, come on.
So just to do a little presentation. So this is what you get when you create a new project. This is the default application now. It has links to get you started. The CLI wiki, a link to the CLI wiki, the Angular blog, and the tutorial, which is a tour of heroes.
Is that new?
Is that new in 1.2 or 1.3? I don't remember. But that's fairly new, yeah.
Yeah, so it used to just be a rather bland welcome to app screen. So we decided to spice it up a little bit and use it as a place to show some links to some learning.
Spicy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not great, but again, we haven't touched the CSS. So in order to clear that out, to actually start your app development, you still just have to touch one file to clear out the generated HTML.
And this is really what we want to do, like moving forward, is adding more content here for people. This is a way for us to communicate to people, but without every time, like it's going to be the same amount of work for people to HTML and insert their app and their code. So we'll probably add more content in this, better links to stuff that it can be useful when you're starting out.
Like a footnote that says it's being used at NASA.
Yeah, like even NASA is using us, so you can feel confident that this is a good product. So just to get some demo, you can generate a module. For example, you just pass a module name, my module name. Add like that's going to add a new module that's contains like a default component and a default. Sorry, I'm just. Sorry, I just blanked out. So you can, yeah, that's gonna contain new stuff, and of course, like you could create a routing module that's gonna simplify routing for you. Creates two files, and like we can generate like component services, classes, everything, and of course we can generate tests that you can run, and without getting too much into this because this takes a lot of time. Normally, at the end of the day, you want an ng build -- prod, like a production-ready application. And coming in 1.3.0, we have what we call the build optimizer. We're still working hard and making sure that this doesn't break you. But we added another step. So as you can see, this app takes about. So we added another step. That's another couple of plugins for Webpack that basically go further into optimization and of code that you need
Hey, Hans.
to run your application. Remove a lot of code that's basically dead code.
Hans.
Yes.
We have a couple of beginners that are watching online. So if you don't mind, while that's building real quick, can we go back a little bit? And so what you did was ng generate. You made a new, can you scroll up a little bit and show us where you made a new project? And then, so what you did was you added a module, right?
So, yeah, let's
There's where you started the project.
Yes. So let me start a new project. To start a new project, if you're really beginning using Angular and you want to learn Angular, so the CLI is really the best. That's the best starter guide. Basically, it's better than a seed. You just basically do my.
And CLI stands for command line interface. For those, the first time I heard CLI, I didn't know that. So, just in case you didn't.
Yeah.
So, can we? I want to go through the Webpack updates, but just for the beginners that haven't done this yet, if you could just go through like the simple part and then just look at the code real quick, and then we'll go back and see how you add a module. Can we do that? Jump to the code and then look at it, and then we'll go through the updates, because I know there are some experienced people watching that want to, just get the latest, but then there's also some beginner people that, or what do you guys think on the panel? Do you think we should go through the updates first for the people that know what they're doing, or do you think we should go through the basics first for the people who are new?
I mean, I think it's good to make a project. Hans is assuming everyone knows, and I know, but I know a lot of people don't, so it's probably good.
All right. So I'm creating a new project here, my Suite project, and installing all the packages using NPM. So I don't have anything to do. I can get started right away. It takes about a minute and a half with NPM 5 now. We're still working to improve that. And once that project is done, we'll go in the project and look a little bit at the structure of it. So I'm using IDE as my editor, but VS Code or WebStorm are all supported and recommended. Even anything can be your editor of choice. We have some people on the team that use Sublime and VM and VI.
So basically, once you create that project, you could actually do ng-serve and run the project, and it'll go. Everything that you need is done. It'll go, and then you go and customize whatever you want.
Yes.
Because I did that. I tried that the first time I played with the Angular CLI. I was like, okay, I made a new project and then immediately built it, and just to see if it worked, and it was awesome. I was very happy.
Can I explain some of the things I was fascinated by when I first did this, Hans?
Go ahead.
So when I got in there, I was like, okay, cool. It made a new project for me. I could do this on my own, NBD. But then I started looking at what else it did, and I was like, whoa, this is actually fantastic. And so what it does is, like, if you look, there's an environments folder right there. It gives you an environments file that you can put different environment variables on for production and for development. And it just auto swaps those out for you. So you don't have to go through and spend time getting your Webpack to do that for you, which it's not that hard if you're a Webpack guru, but if you're not a Webpack guru, it's intense.
Hey, can we look at that code right there in the environments folder? I know some of us know this, but like even if people are already using the Angular CLI, there's little things in here that, I mean, we're always going to find something that somebody hasn't seen before.
Yeah. By default, the environment's super simple, but I just started looking at all that. It gave me a great TS config setup. It gave me the Angular CLI .json, which I thought was awesome that they let me tweak my settings in there. Man, it just gives you so much. It sets you up with your protractor, which isn't trivial, and it gets your karma going, which can also not be trivial for a lot of people. So I was actually blown away.
Setting up protractor and setting up like karma and all that, it can actually be a huge chore for people. These are not, even more if you want to use TypeScript in your protractor, which we suggest, because TypeScript gives you typing and like reduces the number of errors and makes it faster for you to develop with code completion and stuff like that. So we generate like a for you, and then we use TS node in our protractor JSON protractor config. So so you can use TypeScript right away without worrying about anything. And so you can see it here. So the project is the TS config, and then we just run every single spec files that you have in your end-to-end folder. This can actually be like a lot of work. It can actually take an afternoon for somebody who doesn't know anything about the protractor to wrap their head around trying to figure out how it works and trying to figure out how to configure it. And we give it to you for free.
Yeah.
We give like the same for the testing. Like this little file here can get really, really complex for people to build if they don't know what they're doing. Normally, people just go to Stack Overflow and copy it, and sometimes there are errors in there. So this one we know that works because we use it internally.
Yep, we use it, and also we have tests that verify that things are working. And one other thing about the environments file that's there is that not only can you go in and set up a value like Hans did there with some value that you can use elsewhere in your application, because this is then injectable. You can inject your environment in to different areas of your application. Yeah, at runtime. But also, if you want to do something in there, like I know with NGRX, you can set up the dev tools to get the time-traveling debugger set up. You can do that in only the development environment. If you want to get that set up within here, or different imports or anything else, you can do that for each environment. And another thing is that just because you're given a dev and production environment out of the box, you can also create your own environment. So if you want to have a QA or user acceptance or any other environments, you can set those up as well and just define your own environments. You're not just limited to the two that are here.
And everything is done in the everything is configured from the CLI into the CLI.json. Here, it might be a little bit scary for people that don't know anything.
But it's all. I love it because it's there. Like it works, and if you want to change anything, if you don't want to change it, like if you don't, excuse me, if you haven't done testing. And you don't want to do tests, like if you leave it alone, it'll be fine, right? But if it's there, it's just everything's there and it works out of the box so nicely. I love it.
Yeah, and well, like Aaron was saying, like you can have new environment here. So if we want to have like a QA environment, we can just add it here. And we want to use the same environment file as dev, we can, or we can use a new file here and just copy paste that file and put the right way. And from there, like this is an environment that's now QA, so QA value instead. And if we do in main, we'll see that this is the different value depending on how we use it.
Can we see that on the console log?
Yeah, I can show it. It's got an ngServe by default, because there's no argument, is going to use the development environment, which is called dev in the CLI JSON. It's going to be this one. And then I'll compile, so we just refresh, and we'll see some value here. And environment equal QA. Now we're going to use the QA environment. And it's going to be the new value that's going to be shown. And so you can use different environments because, like, if you have a Firebase backend that you want to use on something else, you can change the values depending on your QA environment. And, okay.
So when you have these different environments, basically, so on the server, when you do your ngServe, you can pick your different environment, which is good when you're developing, especially on a team. So you have your dev and your prod and your QA, so that when you fire up that server, you're going to put a different flag on it, and it will specify which environment you want.
Yes, and I just want to point out, you said something. I just want to point out that ngServe is not meant. It's not tested. It's not secure. It's not meant to be used as a production environment. So directly connected to the internet. It's meant to be used as a development tool.
So ng build is what you want in production when you're ready to go to production?
So you should build and use something else in production, yeah, something that's, much more solid, like Nginx or Firebase or Apache.
A robust web server.
So when you build, the build outputs your final JavaScript and CSS and HTML files. And so you simply need to take that output and drop that on an actual web server somewhere, not on something that's being hosted through the CLI. Like you go put it on your actual thing, and that's all he's trying to say.
But you can still test it, and so you can do ngServe with your prod flag just to see and make sure everything's working right. But you're not actually going to want to put that up for your users to access.
Correct.
Exactly. So you'll see that's what we're doing here.
Hey Hans, one thing you were starting to show but you didn't show was that new flag with the build optimizer.
Oh, so we saw that some value does not exist because
you didn't put it in the production.
We didn't put it in the prods.
Yeah.
And Hans, I can see it okay, but it might not be bad for you to go up just one size on your text just to make sure that it's big enough for the people.
The one in the you know what? I can do presentation mode here.
There you go.
That better? And on the console itself, I can zoom further a little bit and just put full screen too. There you go.
That's awesome.
So the build optimizer stuff is coming in 1.3. This is a separate flag because it's not fully, like, it's hard for us. It works on every project that we tried, but it's hard for us to guarantee that it works with every project out there, so we made it a separate flag. The goal is in the future, probably with version 2.0, and we'll talk about that later today. The goal will be to make it the default at some point, so that people can actually get a huge amount of a good boost on the size, the smaller size. The two things here. I'm going to build with prod, which is going to trigger like all the optimizations that we have today in the 1.27 version. I'm going to toggle the build optimizer, which is that set of further optimization that we have. And I'm going to turn vendor chunk off because the making the vendor chunk separated from the main chunk makes it harder for us to actually do all the optimizations. So it results in slightly larger sizes. And you'll see that we have about 400K. About, yeah, 405K.
Hey Hans,
so we should,
sorry, I keep stopping you. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. When you say vendor chunk, what you're talking about is when you compile all that, you squish all that code together, minimize it so that it loads super fast, and you're gonna load the vendor stuff, all that node underscore modules. You're gonna load that separately, right?
So vendor chunk is the vendor, the bundle that I'm highlighting here.
Mm-hmm.
Which is everything from node modules is into a separate one. Just if you have multiple lazy routes, it could be advantageous for you to remove that chunk, or it could be advantageous for you to put it there. We gave you the option because some people prefer to have it. Some optimizations work better if they're all in the same file.
And so when you're doing vendor chunk false, that means you're just going to bundle it all together.
So as you can see here, I don't have a vendor.hash.bundle.js. It's all together in a single file. It's all in the main. I'm sorry. All the fields are still separated, and inline is necessary for Webpack to work.
So what was the build size difference in the build optimizer?
And all your solid. Sorry, what is it?
What was the size difference when you used the build optimizer? Was it about 40K?
It's about 40K. It looks like it, yeah.
In this example, we've been seeing performance anywhere from like, I've heard as little as like 10% up to like 30%, depending upon your application and the different things that it finds within your application of how it can remove other code.
Yeah.
So I tried this today, and we got about 30% savings on a fairly large app. Went down like, I don't know, 500 something K to under 500. It was pretty significant, so we're really happy.
Yeah, 30% is what we see on Angular.io as well. We use this on Angular.io now, and that's what we saw.
For the beginners, when I first started learning Angular, and I learned Webpack not that long ago, and it was great because Webpack will handle all of your compression for you and get that all loaded, getting all your modules. I mean, it's kind of like what we used to use Require for. But the first time I set up Webpack, it was hard to learn because I didn't really know a whole lot about it. Once I got it set up, I didn't ever have to mess with it again. And it was great, right? Because it made everything fast. It handled all of my transpiling for me, and I never had to touch it again. But that first initial setting up that Webpack and setting up my environment, getting it all the way I wanted was, it took a while and it was painful, right? And what I really got excited about before I even met Mike and Hans, when I started using the CLI and looking at it, actually, I don't know if I think the first time I met Mike was the first time I heard about CLI, and I was super excited. But when I went home and played with it, what I love is that all of the stuff, the SAS, the LESS, the Webpack, the TS-Lint, all these little tools, like, I don't know how, I think you guys were spying on me the whole time because you just happen to snag every one of those little tools that I was using, and it's just all there out of the box. I love it. Love it. So if you're new, basically, I mean, I guess my quick version, the beginner version of the Webpack is it just takes all your stuff, squishes it together, and makes it fast. And yeah. So
one of the things I've been saying is that I've kind of been forgetting a lot of Webpack. I used to know a lot about Webpack, but I've been forgetting it because with using the CLI, I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to worry about how to configure different loaders and plugins and everything else because it's all right there for you. And yeah, the CLI is being used by the Angular.io website as well as NASA. So, I mean, you can't really go wrong, right?
One thing that's really great about it that I like to point out to people is it's kind of like a black box. So you start to use it, and then features like the build optimizer come out. And now suddenly your build's even faster and smaller, and you just did that for free. Yeah, all I had to do was change a package JSON, and now my build's better. So it's really great.
Yeah, I love it because I don't have to set anything up. Just start coding and go.
That's the experience that we're aiming for. I mean, I remember, like, I give that example often, but 2 years ago, I was working on AngularJS, on an AngularJS project. And it was such a pain to set up the build, such a pain to, and there are seeds, but you download a seed, and then you're not done because you still have to make the seed work like your project you want, and basically it doesn't solve the problem. The real solution is, you know, some tool that actually can understand what you're trying to do and help you work along the way and all the ugly pieces away from you. And sure, you lose a little bit of customizability along the way, but like you said, like you gain a lot in, you know, ease of use and making your project like the best it can actually be.
Absolutely.
So I have a question.
I was going to say something.
Can we talk real quick about the node modules and the vendor stuff? Can I ask a question about that?
Yep. And then Frosty after that.
Okay, thanks. So just to kind of clarify that you could load up your node modules with a bunch of packages, right? But it's only the stuff that you're using that CLI is going to build and deliver in that build, correct, into the vendor?
Yes.
So like it's a little bit different thinking, like CLI is taking care of all of that for you. So I mean, you can go and you can npm install or yarn add all these different dependencies. But if you're not using them in the code, the CLI is smart enough to know I'm not going to bundle that up in your vendor. So it's not like everything from your node modules is going into the vendor. It's just the stuff that it knows that you're using, which is pretty cool.
Yes, it understands your code, it understands what it uses. And that's a good thing because node modules can get really large.
Yeah.
And,
so hold on, just to clarify. So if you have something in your node modules folder that you've done an npm install and then for whatever reason you didn't end up using it, if it's not in an import statement, it's not even going to be in the bundle and it just figures all that out for you?
Yeah, that's traditional Webpack though. Like 85% of the things in that node modules folder is for the generation and the scaffolding and for the ng server and stuff. Like only a very small port of it is to be used in production. So like RxJS and Zone and the Angular libraries themselves are the only pieces that it actually needs. But if you look at the node modules, there's 300 node modules easy.
Yeah. And to clarify that a little bit further real quick is, so by default, we're trying to find a balance of what to scaffold out as a project and not to give you too many dependencies. But we give you a few dependencies to use with your application that you don't actually have included in a build right off the bat from the vendor bundle. So we give you add Angular /HTTP and add Angular /routing are automatically there and they're in the node modules. But the project that Hans created here isn't importing it, so that's not part of your build output. So that code isn't in the vendor file or any of the bundles with the build optimizer turned on there.
So when we hear these cool buzzwords at ngConf, like tree shaking and lazy loading, like, do we have to do that, or we just start using Angular CLI and it all happens?
Up to a point. You said so tree shaking, yes, but you said something about lazy loading, and that's a little bit more involved.
Can you explain those two things?
You have to build your route.
Yeah,
so
I can talk to that if you want.
Okay, well, go ahead, Mac.
Yeah, I actually just had a meeting
already.
about I just had a meeting about lazy loading as well. And lazy loading is a means to be able to defer loading some of your JavaScript and some of your assets till when they're actually needed by your somebody in your application. The best example to talk about that is an admin section. So not all users are going to be admin, and you may have, I don't know, say 100K worth of JavaScript and HTML to make up your admin section where admins can go in and tweak different settings within the app. But maybe you only have 5% of your users are there, so you don't want to send that code down every time. So whenever a user would navigate to the admin section and it validates and authorizes them to access it, then at that time it will pull down the admin code to be able to render that part of the application. And the CLI supports that. If you define your route, that path as a lazy path using load children to reference the module that's in, then the CLI will automatically recognize that and build that as a separate bundle, which could be installed lazily or pulled down and parsed lazily.
So we get lazy loading without doing anything.
The only thing you have to do is
handles it,
with the exception of defining the route. If you define your route to be a lazy route, then that will the CLI will build that for you because it recognizes how to parse a lazy route and build that bundle separately for you.
Do we have time tonight to look at what that actually looks like? No, I mean, it doesn't need to be right now, but if we have time, let's put that on the list and do it.
Yeah.
So my question is kind of related to this stuff, so I'm going to pipe in.
Yeah.
So it's more of a future-proofing question, but it's also related to lazy loading. Sometimes I have features where I'll use a really fat library only on one feature, and I only use it some of the time. An example is something like Fabric.js or D3, something that's bigger than I want to put into my build. And they're not things that are necessarily tied to a route change. So my question is, for that kind of stuff, I might want to use Webpack's bundle loader. Okay, so that I can lazily load a bundle on the fly, and the Webpack build should just recognize that stuff and take care of it for me. But let me ask the question: is there a possibility that going forward, the CLI doesn't use Webpack, so I shouldn't be using any custom Webpack commands because I may not be using Webpack in the future? Like, does that make sense?
That's a good question.
Like, are you going to switch out from underneath me to Bazel, and then all my Webpack stuff that I added because I know you're using Webpack and I start to use it too, that just goes away? Like, I'm just trying to understand the future proofing of the code I'm writing.
Remember, he knows where you live, Mike.
He has no idea where I live. I'm in a basement. So, Hans, did you want to talk about that, or you want me to?
I can take this. So one reason we insisted so much into abstracting and hiding Webpack itself, and I mean, it's not fully opaque. You'll see Webpack appear here and there. We try to do a really good job at that. And the reason that we're doing that is that if you're using the CLI without ejecting, like pure CLI stuff, you can actually that you're going to be future-proof, that everything that we support in the CLI today will support tomorrow. If we switch over to Bazel, we will. So there is no plan currently to switch to Bazel as the default environment, the default build system. There are plans to support Bazel for people who want to use Bazel in their environments with the CLI. But Webpack is still the default environment.
I thought you were going to say if we switch to Bazel, we will refactor Frosty's code for him.
We could do that, but I don't know how much he's going to pay for it.
Yeah, for a fee.
Isn't that a Google thing? Like, you own it, and if you break it in other places, you got to go through everywhere and fix it, or what?
No,
oh, yeah.
I don't think that's something.
And all the ngHouston people too. I think everybody watching should have their code refactored for them.
Houston, we have a problem.
Except I think Thomas Burleson got like thousands of hits on one of his, so I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't say that.
Point to show you something. So I'm gonna add a new file. It's gonna be like split.ts, just for naming it something, because, and I'm gonna console.log some value here. Yes. So you know about the ES 2015 import. Are you guys still there?
Yeah,
yep.
We're here.
Yeah, you're talking about the dynamic imports, correct, Hans?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna do a window that set timeout. No, not even. I can just do like, I'm gonna, when the component is created, so in the constructor, file I just put, and I'm going to call the function. So that should be. I'm not sure why this is not working. Oh no, because I'm stupid. Sorry, I just module, and then
this is where it gets fun. When our speaker starts live coding and everything goes
Yeah, and sometimes I have a self-deprecating habit. I'm just I hit my head. You can't see that because there's no camera. So instead of hitting it, I'm just going to tell the world that I'm an idiot.
That's okay.
Hans,
This
you're
is where we
good enough,
bond.
you're smart enough, and people love you.
Thank you.
So
Gosh,
I'm telling
Marty.
you that you're targeting the wrong thing. Yeah.
See, if you
Yes,
mess up,
so
Hans,
the
we all
target-
need to debug with you.
Ironically, I just wrote a blog post about this like last week.
All right.
Or you
so
have
I'm
the
gonna
most
remove
amazing
Prod
blog.
Actually, I'm going to remove prod 2 because we don't have like all night. I just want to show you that this will actually split it up into a separate file.
So you guys,
That's going to be.
awesome.
So as you can see, there's a split chunk.
That's beautiful.
I'm not sure.
That's so cool.
Yes. Not sure why.
Yeah, I was gonna say check the app.
I think the target has to be ES Next.
Okay, and Hans, I hate. I'm going to keep doing this to you because you go really fast sometimes, and I know this is easy for you, but some of the people just got their brains scrambled. So can you back up and show us exactly what you did for that split chunk? Just
okay,
because you just went super fast, and that was cool.
He was trying to show the question I asked, which is, I want to lazy load something not on a route change. Because Brocchi's already talked about on route changes, we got you covered, right? And I was like, well,
Yes.
what about not on a route change? So he made a little script or split.ts, and he's just showing us, look, I'm able to lazy load this on the fly. And he showed us that the build made a separate chunk for that.
which is, yep. So we do use a feature that's not available in every browsers right now, but it's available in Webpack and TypeScript. We just need to support it, which is basically when you import, you can use the import directive, which is a dynamic import of a file. So here, I import in my app.component, I import the file split.ts, which returns a promise that will resolve when the file is imported. And then I can call the function on it, which I exported from here.
So to kind of explain more what's going on there is when he writes that import step, Connie, there's a loader in Webpack that's watching for those statements. And it says, all right, that's going to be a separate chunk like that. I'm going to make that a separate chunk on its own. So anytime I say import this, I use that kind of syntax. What the Webpack build underneath makes a separate chunk for that piece of code. So that's the magic going on there is the Webpack.
Yeah, and to answer your other question, if and when we support Bazel, we'll support all those kind of things as well. And if you're using the CLI, and we switch at some point with Bazel, or you want to switch with Bazel, normally it should be like a seamless transition for you. You should just keep calling ngbuild -- prod or something like that, and it will work right out of the box.
Can I have some fun screen share time too?
Oh yeah, if you want.
Poor Hans.
Yeah, I was having a lot of fun here, but that's fine.
Hans, you killed it, man. You did awesome.
That was pretty cool.
All right.
I think you might have scrambled a few brains on the beginners, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's your questions are quite advanced, actually, so it's hard to go full on beginner sometimes.
That's okay. We have some people here that have been using it for a while too, so it's a little bit for everybody. I just keep trying to stop you and slow you down a little bit because when you do something really cool, I'm like, okay, now show us the code one more time so we can see what you just did. But we can also rewind it on YouTube, so it's all good.
Yep.
Mike,
There
you
you
want the
go.
screen?
Yeah.
Hit it.
All right. Everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, cool. So I just did the same thing Hans did. I did a new project, except I am using an older version of the CLI. Well, I can't say older. I'm not using the new version, so I don't have Build Optimizer in here. I'm using 1.2.7, which was released today or yesterday?
Today.
Today. So, This morning. So yeah, it's got a few hours. So in Justin's time, he tells us we released too fast, so it's old. So what I want to do is I wanted to just show a little bit about generating. So I want to generate a component and talk a little bit about what that's doing. So I'm going to generate a component, and I'm going to call that, I don't know, my list, which is going to scale out a new component. It's going to tell us the files that it's generating here. So you see it generates a CSS file, HTML, test file, as well as the component file itself. But down here, you notice in yellow, it shows this update. And that's just modifying this app.module file, which is under app.module. And what that did is it actually took that new component that I created and is automatically imported into the module and declaring it so that I can use it. I don't have to worry about any other steps to be able to use it. I can just use that directly within my application. So if I come in here and I'm going to clear out all the let me go and start up, and I'll bring this in just so you guys can see. So I'm just going to run ngserve and do that. And we'll let that start up. I'm going to find a new window over here, new browser window, and I'm going to bring that up here and get rid of this. Oh, I do. I don't know. There we go. Let's building.
So Mike, as this is loading, I have a couple questions. They're really easy questions.
I like easy questions. Go.
Good. Have you guys put it on your roadmap to alphabetize anything when that app module is updated? Or are you just always prepending it to the end of the location right now that it's being found?
Potentially.
Potentially, okay.
Yeah, I think that's listed in the style guide somewhere to do that. We're not doing that as of right now.
Yeah.
I could see that getting a little wonky, like with Git tracking, if it was rearranged and stuff. Like all of a sudden now you own those Git lines where you didn't actually make them.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a little weird.
I could see that too. I'm just curious if that was an option or a potential opportunity in the future.
Oh, there's
Maybe
all kinds of opportunities.
I would almost say if it's. Go ahead.
I'll get to that. I'll get to it. So in terms of customizing the output, I'll talk about that here in a few minutes.
Okay. My second question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Is there a simple way to rename a component where it can take the main pieces like the class name and the file name and that and potentially refactor it? Like, are there any refactor functions in the Angular CLI?
Josh, dude, you stole my question.
Great minds think alike.
Josh, you've been really nice. So I'll say I will answer Bonnie's question and say no, Bonnie, that's not possible right now.
Okay.
But
so it's not possible right now. On the timeline, we do have refactoring, which is going to be. We'll talk about maybe the roadmap.
Sure.
Definitely there. Maybe not renaming, but at least giving you like the tools that if you want to do renaming, it would be easy for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clear out the HTML file here, the app component, and just say hi and save that. And you'll notice my app will refresh after that recompiles and we see hi in the browser. So that's just the part of the live dev experience. But if I wanted to use my component and if I open up my list component.ts, I have a selector here of app my list. So that's the selector that got applied when that got generated. So I'm just going to drop one of those in here and click that and paste that in. And save that, and we'll see that I can use the new component that I had created. So my list component is my template from within here. And Hans said, and Aaron, you guys were talking about the idea of whether or not there's webpacky things within your application. At build time, this really doesn't do anything until Webpack can actually require it. And as part of the build process, we kind of toss in the Webpack portion of that. But your code, as you write it, doesn't necessarily need to know anything about Webpack, that it's actually requiring an HTML file there.
Right, right.
So if I come, go ahead.
Sorry. Are you gonna? I think you're probably gonna show it, but I want to make sure you do because I think it's really cool. So can you show the abbreviations on the command line?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because I was really excited the first time I figured that out. I was like, woohoo! I don't even have to like spell out generate.
Yeah. So if this is my awesome list, and we don't have a whole lot of time, so I won't get into that. But if I want to create a list item, so I can do ngg and component, or if I wanted to just say C and say my list item, it'll do the same thing as ng generate component. By just typing in G and then C, which is the first letter of it. And
so guys, after you get good at this, you can actually do like 5 hours worth of work in 5 minutes, and then just send your check to Mike and Hans for all the work that they've done.
Yeah, and you
because I used to type all this when I first started using Angular. I used to type all of this out, like all of these. I had to create all of these files, and now it's just like, and then I'm done.
And it works the same thing with everything else as well. You can type it a directive, and you can call it a fancy directive. You can do that. That'll scale that out for you. Also, if you're generating a component, GC, and I'd say it's going to be a really small component. Like I just want to be able to display a name, right? So I type in name, and I want it to be inline template and inline style with no spec.
Okay, hold on. You're going really fast again. You have this all on your...
You told me to go fast.
No, I didn't mean... No, you have plenty of time. We're not going anywhere. Remember, we're super chill around here. We're just...
All these things he's showing us, if you type ng generate help, it's got all that stuff in there.
Show us
Pro tip.
Okay, hold on. Great. So what I have here is I'll make that a little bit bigger.
We're not like ngConf. We don't have deadlines.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we should talk to the organizers.
What?
I said we're not like ngConf. We don't have deadlines. You can go over your time, and you're not going to get trouble.
It was a jab. It was a jab. I get it.
It was a good-natured jab.
Even at ngConf, they go over the deadline anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to be dressed like Cookie Monster. I know. All right. So what I have here is ngg, and the G stands for generate, C for component, name, which is the name of my component, -it is short for inline template, is is short for inline style, and then I'm specifying that I do not want a spec file. So if you look at the components up here, I've got 4 files being generated, and I'm going to go ahead and generate this here. And you notice that only 2 files are being touched. One, it's creating my component file, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But it's also then declaring that component in the module as well, so that I can use it right away. And I made this a little bit too big, so I can't see anything anymore. So if I go into name, .component.ts, and I'm just going to this down a little bit, you notice that now I have my template in line. So it's all in one file. Same thing with the styles. I don't have a styles URL. It's all within here. And also at the same time, I also do not have a spec file.
Because you did inline template, it put it, instead of making a separate HTML file, it just put it all there.
It put it in line. And the same thing with styles. The styles are within that.
You can go into your Angular CLI.json file and make that the default, by the way, which I did.
We'll call that the Frosty setting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mike, Weston wants to know in the chat if you can generate a component and import a class into that component from the CLI. I don't think you can. You can't import. You have to go in there and put your import statement, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we type a lot of your code for you, but we can't do everything. So in the component, if you want to say inline template, and that needs to be in quotes because this is a JSON file, and we want to say that's true, and then we want to say inline style.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's going to be true as well. And then we are going to say spec. Yeah, specs are going to be false because we don't like to test our code anymore.
So you just put all of those flags that you just typed on the command line, you just put all those in your defaults. So now when you do ngGC, it's going to do that for you.
Yep. I think I can use this in here. Nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a new component, and we're going to call this one Frosty. And I'm not going to put any yeah, you're welcome, buddy. And I'm not going to type any other options at the command line. It's just going to read those for me. And you'll notice it's doing the same thing that it did with the other. So if I come in and looked at Frosty in here, you see I get my inline template, and I got my inline styles as well with no spec file.
Hey, Mike,
can I in here? hold on.
Sorry.
No problem. So I'm going to turn specs back to true, and I'm going to generate another one, and we're going to call this one Shorty because he likes to test. And this is just to show that we got this in here.
He's kind of testy.
So we've got that in there. If we come in to look at his component here, you can see that we have the TS file with the 2 inlines as well as the spec file.
So
go ahead, Frosty. What you got, man? I
just was going to say one thing that one flag I would love is -X. I'd love to be able to also have it exported because I know like because I like do a couple modules deep, and I'm having components that I just as soon as I generate them, I'm getting errors. I'm like bloody freaking! It's right here. The CLI is genius. It made it for me, and then it takes me like because the error messages of hey dummy, you didn't export it. The Angular team needs to fix that because it's horrible, by the way. So I banged my head on the wall for 5 minutes trying to find out. But do you got me? Are you trying to tell me you got this?
I got you, man. So in here, if you wanted to export your component, I'll lay your hands in the air and everything.
What?
I want to take off the screen. I want to take off the screen focus so that you guys can see Shorty dancing because it's epic.
All right, so we're gonna come in down here. We got X Frosty, right? He's down here, and he's declared. Oh, he's also exported.
I did not know that was the thing. I repent and I love you more than ever.
That's the price of admission for him.
Would you like to be happier?
I am happier. I was already happy. It was only an ask, but you already did it.
We'll go further. We're going to generate a feature at a module, right?
Now he's just showing off, you guys.
Okay, so now I don't have that module, right? But if you say you want it to be in a feature module, so if I come in here and I'm going to create a new one, and I've got nothing else for you, so we're just going to call this ngconf guy, right? And say I'll generate that component, but I want it to be generated into this super module that I created here, and that's going to be under feature/feature.module.ts. So what it's doing here is I'm generating the ngconf guy component because that's just the name, but I'm saying that I want it to be in this module here, in this new this module that I just created. So let's open that up, right? So we got this feature module here, and so then we also and that's where we want to declare it, and that's where we want to use it. So we can go ahead and do that for you and automatically put that into that feature module for you.
Wow. What if the feature module wasn't there when you did that? Would it fuss at you or would it create it?
Then it would bark at you. So if I come up and I type that same command, except I said, all right, this is going to be in an invalid path, it's going to bark at you and say, hey, yeah, sorry, that's not going to work.
So one switch that Mike hasn't shown is the dry switch, dry run. And I put dry run on everything I do because I don't want to, because otherwise I have to delete like 8 files every single time. So every time I do something, I do -D at the end. And if it looks good,
Mike.
I run it a second time.
I'm sorry. Sorry for the vulgarity there, the potty word.
Scandalous. It's a good thing, Frosty, you're not on your family account right now.
Hey, show dash help, because then everybody can learn all this stuff.
Yeah.
Wait, did I say a bad word?
No. Mike is barely PG-13, but he's doing great so far.
All right.
And so go ahead.
So what I ran is ng generate -- help. This is going to tell you all the blueprints as well as all the different options. So you can see you can generate classes, components. There's a lot of different options for classes as well. There's your export flag, Frosty. So you're the one that gave the help tip, but you didn't see export in there.
It's clear at the bottom.
You don't even need to leave the CLI to learn about the CLI.
Yeah, now if you do want to leave the CLI, you can go to the GitHub repo because they actually have they have a great README with a lot of stuff there. So
yeah, we also have the documentation's all on the wiki on the same repo.
Yeah, and it's really good documentation. And Rob from the chat said another cool one can create routing module when you create modules. Can you do the routing from the command line? Can you show us that?
Sure.
I didn't know that. I mean, I knew the CLI was cool, but I'm learning all kinds of stuff here.
I need to learn that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're creating a feature like we talked about the admin section, if I want to generate a module and we're going to name this admin, right? And I want it to be have routing inside of it, I can say -- routing, which is going to set the routing flag to true. And what that's going to do is not only is going to create my module file for me, it's also going to create a routing module. So if we open that up, admin routing, it gives you a place where you can define your different routes within here. So if I were to come in here and say path is admin, and in here that I don't know, the component is going to be whatever it ends up being, super component, right? Which doesn't exist, so this isn't going to work. But you can do that within here and define your routes, and then inside your admin module, it'll handle the routing for you.
Wow.
So as what happens mostly on Angular Air, by the way, if you don't watch Angular Air, watch Angular Air. You're welcome, Shorty.
Yeah.
That a lot of different features usually come up, and people will say, "Yeah, this is great if the CLI does this. Oh, very happy with this." And then it always turns to, "But it'd be really great if it also did this." So,
hey, on that topic, real quick, can I throw something in? Back to Weston's question really quick, where he asked about like, oh, could my component generation also import a class, right? And you kind of said, well, it can't do everything, right? Don't sell yourself short, because you guys got some stuff under the hood there in the CLI in the works, right? That could potentially open up the gateway to having us have these custom things that we could make that kind of recipe happen, right? I mean, that could be a future thing, so keep dreaming.
I feel like after the exporting and after the routing, like we just need to like challenge ourselves to come up with harder and harder things to throw at Mike and Hans.
Dude, there are harder things, and they've already solved them. Like I wanted 2 apps from one CLI project. I didn't want to make 2 projects. They got multiple apps, for crying out loud. I wanted a login page app and then an app. And they freaking got multiple app scenario because the apps is an array. And I was like, what?
I think somebody hassled them about that for a long time.
Yeah, I think he's wearing an LA hat and is in this hangout.
There's way advanced stuff in here.
We have universal support coming, so you could actually sort of build a universal app that will generate Angular from your server.
Hey, speaking of universal, we have Jeff Welpley coming on in a couple weeks. You guys should come back and heckle him.
Oh. Speaking of universal,
okay.
I need to go home.
Rob says, when will it finish my whole app for me?
So I'd like to talk about new features. So Hans just mentioned that there's some rudimentary features with Universal within the CLI as it stands right now. I think it's 1.3 though, correct, Hans?
Yes.
Okay. So 1.3 will bring some universal support to be able to run Angular in a node environment using the CLI. Another feature that's on the way, and this is what Shorty was hinting at that I was about to talk about, is something called schematics, which is a library that Hans mostly wrote that is essentially going to be the new blueprint engine for the CLI. And I'm currently working on integrating that into the CLI. So what that'll give you is not only the ability to do everything that you currently do today, but also the ability to customize your own, for a better word, blueprints, the files in which your application is based. So for example, if you have, every time you generate a service, we'll say component, anytime you generate a component, if you have some sort of base component that you use in your organization that you have to go in and say, all right, extends my super base component, because that's what everybody names on my super base component, then you can change that the blueprint or schematic for components to be able to generate with that extends within there. But not only that, you could do other things as well, whatever you wanted it to do, whether or not you wanted to change everything from spaces to tabs or double quotes to single quotes or vice versa or anything else. Whatever you want, you dream up, you can do.
Or provide a flag for the service name you want to have injected into your component.
That would work as well. Yes. So yeah, there's going to be a whole lot to do with that. And the CLI will support that out of the box. So each of these schematics are joined together in a collection. We'll provide a default implementation that will be feature parity with the current blueprints. So that collection is being worked on right now and should drop in the next release, which is 1.4. And that's the plan, at least. Hans not in his head, so we're good there. It's on me to finish the code, though. So that'll be in there, but you'll be able to specify your own collection within the configuration so that you can use whatever configuration you want. And then that configuration will be able to extend the base configuration. So if you only want to tweak the way the interfaces are generated, you could do that and still use all the other default scaffolds.
Basically, you'll be able to implement. There's some people starting implementing already schematics themselves. And you'll be able to use one, like if you have a project or you have a company and you want to switch to your own way of doing components or way of doing tests or something like that, you'll be able to just use custom templates for every NGG basically, and even change your NGNU entirely.
Well,
You guys have that.
I wanted to give a shout out. I found this out an hour ago, and I guess it just is a testimony to your guys' attention to detail. But I found out today that you can ng generate, and you don't have to do the dash separated. You could do a camel case. So you can say ng generate, and you could say component name and component capital C, right? And that will generate the file with the dash separated and still create the class name in the proper format. And that was really impressive to me because I did it on accident, and it ended up doing exactly what it was supposed to. And that was really cool.
You're talking about what I have here,
Yeah, exactly.
ngHouston. Yeah, because the file naming convention is to use dash case based off the style guide, so it'll automatically generate the folder with the same dash notation.
And to the people that don't use the CLI, if he were to do ngGC ng dash Houston, so he uses a dash separated name, it will create the proper component name using the case sensitivity in the file. And so you don't always see that happening in the CLI, but when you go into the file, you'll see that everything is fit to those standards. And I use the CLI every day. I do Angular development now full time. And these little details like this really make this tool outstanding for me.
Yeah, and we've got that seconded in the chat, Hans and Mike. Rob says, "Is a lifesaver and a time saver great?" And he cannot count the number of hours this has saved me. And I totally agree with that. There's just so much work. Like we could just, get all our work done in the morning and then take the afternoon off, and they'll think we've been working all day. And Schwarty's got to go. Everybody say goodbye, Schwarty. Schwarty's got. What do you softball? That's right.
I got softballs, playoffs, baby. So I got.
Are you in the playoffs?
Yeah, but like everybody makes playoffs, so don't get that excited.
Oh, that's cool. Well, thanks for joining us. It's always fun to have you on. I'm glad you got to stop by.
I'm back. Now that Justin's gone, I'm coming back. So, just to recap, so we've learned that Josh, Rob, and NASA are happy, right?
Hey, I'm happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Same here.
What about Keith? Keith, are you happy? No, Keith is muted. Keith is muted but happy. You're still muted.
He's unmuted but unheard.
Yeah, well, we got 2 thumbs up from Keith, so that's pretty happy.
I'm putting that in my journal.
And Corey's muted
it'll
too,
be
but
my
he's smiling. So I think we have a lot of happy people.
Well, I mentioned that I do my own marketing, but I think that I actually, in my own mind, I think that Corey is basically the marketing team for the CLI with the blog posts that he puts out. So thank you to Corey for all those.
Yeah, no problem.
I think the CLI, like everybody that I've known, as soon as they hear about the CLI, it's like automatic. As soon as I found out there was going to be a CLI, I was like, oh, that's actually one of the reasons that I was really motivated to go ahead and make the jump from AngularJS to Angular, because I was like, already, I want to hear about it. I already loved Angular. So when I found out about Angular 2 coming out, I was like, I definitely want to know about it. But then when I found out about the CLI, I was like, I would upgrade just for that, because it's that cool, and it has. And Like we already loved you guys, and you keep on working on it, and you keep on improving it, and giving us like I already use it. I think it's awesome, and everything that I do on it is perfect. But then I find out there's all this other cool stuff that I didn't even know about. Aw, y'all are awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff coming in the pipeline. Trust me. This is just gonna get faster, smaller apps. We want to integrate the CLI with your IDs, so you can use the CLI without adding like a command line. WebStorm and VS Code, there's a VS Code extension that does that. You just basically right-click on where you want to create the component, and you say create a component here, and then you get like a little wizard where you can enter the name, and it just does that automatically for you.
It's a CLI less CLI.
Yeah, exactly.
Rob said he just saw the design doc for the Docker files, and I have not heard about that. Can y'all talk about that for a second? I don't know where he saw that. He just said that in the chat.
It's on the repo.
I didn't.
That's been out there for quite a while. In lieu of other features and other things, I think that's kind of been backburnered. I don't know what the timeline or priority of that feature is, but I know that that document's been out there for quite a while.
And it's on the to-do list, but it's not on the top of the to-do list?
Basically, we have a few things that we're going to work on in the future without like giving any timeline. We want to rework. We wanted to add like refactoring, like we said earlier, refactoring library that will make like making schematics more powerful and easier to make. And then we're going to probably focus on abstracting the build system at some point. And we want to add like a proper deploy abstraction as well, so you can have like deploys for Firebase, deploys for Docker, your own deploy mechanism. You have some that integrates with Webpack and the build system, so that you don't have to build using certain like arguments or anything like that. If you deploy production, like the most optimized version of your app every time.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that we need to keep a really close eye on you, because if you two keep doing what you're doing, we're all going to be out of jobs.
So before we go any further, Hans is just going to start collecting your salary. So thank you.
Yeah. We accept helps, by the way. We're just two people here. We're not more. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
You forgot Philippe.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
we can't go any further watching Philippe.
He's going to watch this and he's going to be mad.
I just want to point out that we also have like dozens of awesome people that pull up like comments and like PRs every week. We love everybody. It's not just like a 3-man team. And if you guys have anything to contribute, seriously, even if you don't know what to contribute, just file an issue. That's normally the easiest way. Don't look for my phone number. File an issue. Find us on Gitter. Find us like Stack Overflow. Ask us like, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. We'll give you stuff. We have enough stuff for 5 lifetimes. And there's more stuff that just gets added every week. So
yeah, I'm not saying typical results may vary, but I started doing this part-time just at night. I did like maybe an hour or 2 a week, and now I'm doing it full-time. So your results may vary, but there are possibilities of things growing in from doing a little bit to doing a lot.
Same for me. I was on the material team before, and CLI was just so interesting.
And now you have adoring fans all over the world.
So
you say CLI and you get street cred.
But
yeah.
I do want to mention, though, one other feature that's coming.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you guys, because you started to go through all the new features, and I kept stopping you and asking you to slow down for the beginners. So I was going to say, if you guys want to recap, like if you want to, rattle off all of the new features and the coming features, then that would be awesome. And we will try very hard not to interrupt you, but we get excited sometimes. So.
All right. Immediate build optimizer is in 1.3. And these are just like the bigger roadmap items. There's obviously lots of little nuances and improvements along the way. 1.3 has build optimizer. 1.4 is going to have schematics. So the idea of having your own custom blueprints. 2.0, we're planning in some refactorings within there. But in the roadmap moving forward beyond 2.0 is the idea of providing more access to the build system. So whether or not that's additional build hooks or more granular than a full eject, and also just abstracting the build process. So maybe if there's a basil build process, or if there is somebody wants a gulp build process or whatever, just abstract it so that that can be built by the community or whoever. The other thing that's a major item on the roadmap is library support, to be able to build Angular libraries, not just applications, but also deployable libraries that you could deploy to NPM for others to use.
Also, for 2.0, we're going to work on some rethinking of our options. There's a lot of options out there, and they're becoming a little bit convoluted sometimes. People are asking hey, can you add this function? It's already there. This argument, and it's already there. So we're gonna rethink all the options. And we're definitely gonna have Angular 5 by default, and faster build, AOT by default, build optimizer by default. So the jump to 2.0, which should happen in September, by the way, 2.0 should bring a lot of optimizations for your app by default for free. So, and yeah, and like Mike said, using a proper deploy and build, we will definitely add a proper library story. We want to support at some point Electron applications, for example. That would be that's just that's vision level of roadmap, but making an Electron app was as simple as ngNew my Electron app. That would be great. Build and the way you want it. So expose maybe the Webpack config in a better way for people, for developer to add it.
Hey, I have a question. Whose idea was this whole CLI project to begin with?
Igor.
That was pretty cool. And you just did you volunteer, or did you get volunteered? How did that work?
Okay, history, a little lesson of history. So Igor, 2 years ago now, right? I was 2 years ago. Saw the Ember CLI and said oh, you know what would be cool for Angular? CLI. So he had an intern, which was a roadie, which is not, who worked on making a Ember CLI add-on that was just creating and managing Angular applications using a Brocchi build. And then, well, Mike, you want to take it from there? Because I think you started.
I did, but not by much. So it was started, and the build system wasn't quite there. It was starting to generate. We were starting to try and run tests. The first thing I did, actually, my first commit was to delete the favicon so the test would pass, based off of the Ember tests that were there. And from there, it just started to grow of just basically taking the functionality that existed within the Ember CLI and making it work. So generating different items, so generating a component or generating different things, and then working with the style guide team to make sure that what we were creating was adhering to what the official style guide is on angular.io. So that was a large push to get that done. And then Hans took over the build system that was in Brocchi. And Sean Larkin made a huge case, as well as a lot of other people, to take the Brocchi build system that was there to move it over to Webpack. That happened in the beta phase. We were in beta for quite a while. But there was a lot of things that needed cleaned up. I mean, it's a large project. But that happened, what was that, beta 18 or 28? I remember it ended in an 8.
I don't remember. We had so many betas.
Well, I can tell you guys, I've been using this CLI for a while, and you guys are the wind beneath my wings. Seriously.
Are you gonna start singing?
I have to censor myself. No, no, that requires beer. But we'll do that. We'll do that at our next conference. And yes, guys,
Yeah.
Mike does sing karaoke. Hans, do you sing karaoke too?
Yeah, I at the same time, so I can do both at the same time.
Yeah. Did you sing karaoke with us at ngConf?
I don't think I did, actually. I don't remember what I did that night, but I think I had a presentation in the morning the day after, so I was working.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold you to that next year, ngConf, or the next time we see you at a conference. Are you going to be? Are you going to any conferences in the U.S. anytime soon?
Not in the U.S. I'll be at Angular Connect this fall. I don't remember. Is it October?
It
November.
is November. And
8th
then, are you
through
coming
the
to
10th?
ngConf in the spring?
Yes. ngConf is actually the conference for the CLI team because we're all there. So
It's the conference for all of us.
And
That's
actually,
where it all started for me.
the three of
Yeah.
us will actually all be at Angular Connect.
I'm not going to be at Angular Connect. I'm going to be very sad. I'll be
Yes,
I'll be
but there
stalking you
may
on
be
Twitter.
people watching this that aren't.
well,
Yeah.
That may.
Skype and karaoke.
Well, I'm going to hold you to that. Next time we start singing karaoke, we're going to go track you down and we're going to find you. Okay, I think. And this panel? Does you guys have any more questions? Corey, Keith, Josh?
Nope. Just want to say thank you for all your hard work.
Thank
Yeah, I would
thank
second
you.
that.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Same.
for using
I'll
it.
echo that. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. We really appreciate all your hard work. We just turn it into our easy work. Your hard work becomes our easy work. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. I think that's going to be it for tonight. And you guys are awesome. Come back anytime because we love you guys. And it would be great for you guys to come back periodically and keep us posted on what you're working on because we're excited.
We'll do.
Sure.
Thanks
all
for
right,
having
thanks,
us.
guys. Y'all have a good night.
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.